Hi friends, welcome back to my channel, and in today's vlog I will be reading the 5 highest rated books according to Goodreads on my TBR. First up, I will be reading Sidetracked. This is the second book in the Mindfuck series, and it has an average rating of 4.40. I will then be reading The Point of It All by Christina C. Jones. This is the second book in the Sugar Valley series, and this has an average rating of 4.52. I will be reading On a Wicked Dawn by Stephanie Lawrence, which is the 9th book in the Sinster series, but I'm pretty sure they can be read out of order, and that has an average rating of 4.06. And then lastly, I will be reading Wild Sweet Love by Beverly Jenkins, and this has an average rating of 4.51. I'm very excited to read these books. Obviously they're at the top of my TBR as far as Goodreads ratings goes, so a lot of people enjoy them. Granted, a lot of these are like second books in a series, so the assumption would be that the people reading the sequel would have enjoyed the first book. If it's like a series, if it's books that have to be read in order, obviously with some romance series, they're like companion books, so they don't have to be read in order. But that is what I'll be reading. Let's get into the vlog portion of the video, and hopefully I find some 5-star reads. So I have read the first book for this video, and I'm 25% of the way through the other one. So last night I started and finished Sidetracked. This is the second book in the Mindfuck series, and this is the story of a serial killer and an FBI agent who is investigating the people that she's killing. This one is furthering the plot of who she's hunting down, and also another serial killer that the FBI is investigating that is possibly looking for her as well, to like take her and as the FBI agent's girlfriend, take her and do whatever to her. This is 98 pages. It's pretty short. I did end up giving it 4 out of 5 stars. I think it was just as good as the first one. And I like these short little stories that always end in an interesting cliffhanger. I think the relationship is so cute. We have some jealousy in this because Lana has to have like a protection detail because the serial killer is after her, and Logan just like gets jealous of the guy that's like staying in her house, and it's very cute. And she gets jealous of like some of his exes that are in the FBI with him, and it's just, their relationship is very cute. So I'm definitely excited to move on to the second one. And then I'm also 25% of the way through The Point of It All. So this is about Ava and Luke, and Ava just got out of a bad relationship. The point that I'm at the 15% mark, I don't know a whole lot. I don't know like the details of their marriage. All we know is that he's a billionaire, and they now have gone their separate ways. She's moved to Sugar Valley, where this whole series takes place, and she has bought this vineyard, and the vineyard was actually started and run by Luke's grandparents, and when his grandfather died, it wasn't willed to him, so it was just sold to Ava. And in the beginning of the book, she goes to a bar attached to an inn that she's staying at, and he approaches her and asks her to sell him the vineyard, and she of course says no. And then they have a run-in again at the vineyard a couple of like the next chapter, and we're getting some history into the vineyard on his end, and what it means to him, and the history and all that kind of stuff. So I'm enjoying it so far. I like Christina C. Jones' writing. I listened to the audiobook for the first one, so this seems like it might be a little bit shorter than the first one was. It's only like a little over 200 pages, but I will say reading it is a very different experience than listening to it. Just some like writing style choices I'm not super vibing with, but I enjoy Christina C. Jones' stories. She's very good at taking like very insular or very stereotypical stories and making them flourish. So I will update you again when I have some thoughts on that one. And yeah, hi friends. So I have finished a book for this video, and I am halfway through another one. So I end up finishing What's It All For? What's the Point of It All? Something like that. The one that I was talking to you about in my previous clip. And I did end up giving this 3 stars. This is just not like the sort of story that I like. I don't like like stories revolving around cancer and loss of people and grief and things like that. That's just not really my thing. And in this one, the heroine has cancer and she doesn't know how long she has to live. And so she is starting this winery so that she can fulfill something before she dies. She falls in love, etc., etc. And it's a good story. It's a very good story if you like stories like that. So like if you enjoy very emotional things revolving around grief and loss and cancer and things like that, you will love this. Like it's very, very, very well done, very well written. I love the relationship in this, but it's just not the sort of story that I enjoy reading, so it ended up being a 3-star. But I would definitely recommend, like I really understand with this one why it's so highly rated. Like it's very good. Now I am 200 pages exactly into Wild Sweet Love. This is a historical romance, and we open the story with the heroine getting caught by some bounty hunters because she is a notorious bank robber. She gets put in prison, and then she ends up getting out and put in the care of the hero's mother. He is like this influential politician. He owns a bank. And they start up this antagonistic relationship because he doesn't really trust her, and his mother is kind of like, you can get over it. And so they are forced to, you know, spend time together. They form a romantic attachment, and I'm enjoying this a lot more than I usually do with Beverly Jenkins. Like, her stories are good, but generally the formula is 50% of the way through, they're together, and the rest of the story is spent with plot, like outside conflicts, which I just don't really love. That's just not the sort of formula that I like in my romances, and in this one I'm enjoying it. We're 200 pages in, it's 370-ish pages. They haven't had sex yet, which is very odd for a Beverly Jenkins. And aside from Indigo, like this is definitely the slowest burn and the one that I've enjoyed the most out of the ones that I've read. Like obviously Indigo is just like next level, top tier, one of the best historical romances ever. And this one is good. Like it's a good, I can understand why it's highly rated. It's fun, it's interesting. The romance feels actually believable. Like they feel like individual characters, and I love the heroine. She is so interesting. She is this like reformed outlaw who just wants to do it right by everybody in her life, especially the hero's mother, who has sort of like given her a second chance on life, but she really wants to get back home to the South where her family is, and so she is trying to turn her life around to be able to go back. And it's just an interesting story, and the hero himself is dealing with some crime and some people in like the same, not political party, but like the same political area. So like the black political parties are separated into the radicals and the conservatives. The conservatives don't really want to push for like equal laws for people of color. They want to focus on reconstructing the lives of people of color, and the radicals want to obviously work on laws and make sure everything is truly equal. So the conservative part has this guy who is not great. He's like kind of a gangster, and he employs people in like the slums area of, I think they're in Chicago, to rough people up, to like set fires and do things to like make the, like just commit crimes basically. So he's having to deal with the Republican dude or the conservative dude. That's the overarching plot, and then of course their romance. So I am enjoying it a lot more than I usually do Beverly Jenkins. Her stories are very middling for me, but I read this like super fast. Like I sat down and basically read it all in one sitting. So I'm gonna update you again when I am done with it. So I have officially finished Wild Sweet Love, and as predicted, I gave this 3 stars. I enjoyed it in the beginning, and I loved the heroine. I liked the relationship, but I'm not as big of a fan of stories, particular historical romances, where it's just like them living their life and like doing stuff together. That's not particularly interesting to me, and that's kind of Beverly Jenkins like brand of historical romances. So it was a good one. I understand why people love her stories and like this one in particular, because the heroine is just so much fun and their relationship is a lot of fun, but it's not like my thing. So I'm not mad that the last 2 books haven't been like my perfect read, because like I understand why they're so highly rated. Like I see it. It's just like my own personal things that I do and don't like in stories, that they just happen to be hitting those things that I don't like. So I'm now going to move on to On a Wicked Dawn. We'll see how that one goes. I think I've read one other book by Stephanie Lawrence and I didn't like it. I think I gave it 2 stars, if I'm thinking of the right book. So we'll see how this one goes, and then we'll move on to the last book. This is the kind of convoluted shit that some historical romance authors will use for the reason that there's angst in their relationship. So in the beginning of the story, the hero is broke. Well, he finds out that he's not broke. He gets drunk in celebration and then goes back to his townhouse. The heroine is waiting for him. She basically says, listen, I know your family is destitute. I have a big dowry. We'll get married. And then he passes out. He's like, yes, it would be my pleasure to marry you or whatever. And then he passes out. Next morning he wakes up and he remembers that he's not destitute anymore. We go through an explanation of like how he's not destitute, how his family was pretending that they had money all this time, but now they really have money. And he also remembers that like she proposed and he wants to marry her, which like 5 seconds prior to her even mentioning the marriage, he had 0 interest in her. But then all of a sudden he's like, yes, now I need her, like she's mine. And then we get to the morning after. He's like, I can't tell her that I just want to marry her. Like I can't tell her that I'm no longer broke and that she doesn't need to marry me for her dowry, because I don't want her to know that I just like want to marry her. So I have to like keep that to myself. So I won't give her the power of knowing that like I just want to marry her. Like what kind of convoluted shit is that? It's so dumb. Like that's such a dumb reason not, like I never wanted marriage before her, so I can't tell her that I'm like actually into her. Okay friends, I have finished the last 2 books for this video and I have determined that I just don't like reading anymore, apparently. So I finished On a Wicked Dawn. This is a historical romance about the hero who is attempting to marry the heroine after she proposes marriage to settle his debts and to keep his family from going into ruin. She has had a crush on him for a long time and she proposes this not knowing that he actually has money. So he endeavors to get her to marry him without finding out that he's actually not poor, and for them to fall in love, and that's his intention all along. He's had feelings for her for a long time, so there's definitely mutual pining here. I ended up giving this 3 stars. I just found it to be exceedingly okay. I read it physically, I couldn't get through it. I listened to the audiobook was okay. So it just was not keeping my attention, and I ultimately landed at a 3-star. It's very long, it's like 400 plus pages, and I just didn't feel like the plot was interesting enough to carry the fact that they were together so quickly into the story, and they themselves were not compelling characters. The hero, while I enjoyed that he had this, there was this mutual pining, or the guy falls first trope, the heroine herself was annoying, and the hero was like not really anything special. And then I also ended up finishing The Devil's Advocate, which is the 2nd book in the Devil's Playground series, and I won't go too in-depth into the plot of this because the first one is kind of wild, and I recommend going into it with as little knowledge as possible. I read the first one and I said that if certain things happened in the second one, this would end up being a 2-star for me, and the first one would be a 2-star. The thing that I was scared of did not happen, thankfully, but this still ended up being a 3-star. The heroine was probably the downfall of this for me. I enjoyed the hero. I think believably a psychopath, and you know, all of the revenge plots and all of that made sense. However, the heroine herself was either really smart or really, really dumb. Like there would be scenes where simultaneous things, like things were happening simultaneously, and one thing she wouldn't understand and then the other thing she would, and like it just didn't make sense how naive but also how intelligent she was, or not necessarily not intelligent, because you can be intelligent and naive, but she was naive to people's actions and it led her to make dumb decisions. So like she would choose to trust one person and then like 200 pages later she'd be like, well, maybe trusting that person wasn't smart, despite not having any evidence that trusting the person was smart in the first place. And so her actions, because of her naivete, was just a little bit ridiculous and annoying. In addition to that, the like villain or the antagonist of this was kind of the same way. Like he's set up to be this like all-knowing guy who has like blackmail on everybody, and he's always one step ahead. And when it came to the heroine, he just couldn't possibly imagine that she would have more than 2 brain cells and would eventually turn against him. Despite everybody else, he always like has a backup plan. So even though he might not believe that she would turn against him, you would conceivably think that he would have a backup plan, and that just it just didn't fit with his character, and it made it obvious that it was there to further the plot. So altogether a 3-star. I'm kind of disappointed it didn't end in the way that I fear that it was going to end, and that it was going to be like a 2-star, but it just wasn't as exciting as I wanted it to be, and by the last like 100 pages I just wanted the story to be over. So let me know down in the comments your thoughts on anything that I read in this video. I would love to know. If you don't have anything to say, leave some sort of star in the comments. Thank you so much for watching. If you are looking for more content, make sure you follow my Instagram and my podcast Instagram. You could also follow my podcast on all your streaming platforms. Thank you so much for watching, and I will catch you guys in my next one.